Welcome, everyone, to After Dark with Rob and Andrew on the Facebook After Dark page and the YouTube Maga Media page. It is good to see you guys again, and we hope that you all had a fantastic Mother's Day. We've got a big show tonight with a couple of great moms and some fantastic guests. But first off, how was your day so far today, Rob?
My day is great. It's a rainy day here in New York City. Kind of cold and chilly, but I called my mom and wished her a happy Mother's Day. We had a rather long mother-son talk. I cherish my mom. I love her. She's holding down the fort in Camden, Arkansas. That's where I hail from, all the way in New York City. But I'd like to wish all the mothers out there a happy Mother's Day. Hope you had a spectacular day, because where would we be without the moms? This world could not function without moms and dads, and moms make the world go around as well as the dads. And in today's society, sometimes we have stepmoms, grandmoms, aunts, sisters, all of them that step in sometime and help with child rearing. And I take my hat off to them. I mean, me being a single parent, some people have told me Happy Mother's Day, and I accept it. It's not an easy job. So I take my hat off to the moms everywhere that get up every day and make it happen. That is the reason why we wanted to have a special show today to thank the moms of the world, the moms of America, and say Happy Mother's Day. So we have a great panel on with us tonight. First, we're going to bring on I like to say, our resident poet, Ray Ray, who is going to give us one of his spectacular poems in honor of Mother's Day. Ray, how's it going, man?
Good. Thanks, Rob. It's good to be back. I know it's been several weeks, and Andrew, thank you for inviting me on tonight on this very special day. It's really been, for me, my mom is, as you know, still alive at 95, as I like to say.
Happy Mother's Day to her.
And we really celebrated all week. It's just a lot of different activities, and I'm with her, so but she got all the calls today from children and grandchildren, so she's had a fabulous day.
Great.
So on to my poem. I wrote this poem about 6 years ago, and it's a poem that a lot of people can relate to. Many of us, or at least my friends, they've all lost their parents, and the few of us that are still around really relate to this poem called Mother's Eggs. Shall I scramble too? She always said. God forbid I go unfed. I could swear it was that special pan, perhaps the butter, and not by chance. Perhaps the heat upon the stove, lightly salted, one magic throw. Perhaps the egg she neatly cracked, no sunny yolks left intact. It dawned on me, her recipe, the ingredients I finally see. It's not the pan, the salt or heat, nor the eggs which it completes. It's the love we taste in every bite, prepared by hands that make things right. So there's the secret, right on the plate. It's love that makes the eggs taste great.
Beautiful. Wonderful.
Fantastic.
Wow.
Thank you.
And by the way, happy Mother's Day to your mothers also. Always want to say that. So without further ado, let's bring on our guest tonight, our panel. First of all, we're going to bring on our resident journalist, Heather Robinson. Heather, how are you?
I'm fine, Rob. How are you?
Good. Happy Mother's Day.
Thank
and
you.
We will allow you to introduce your lovely mom.
My mother, my inspiration, Judith R. Robinson.
Hello.
Happy Mother's Day. Thank you for joining
very
us.
much. So lovely being here. Thank you.
Yes. And we have our other guest speaker, Phoebe Diamond. Phoebe, how are you?
Yes, I'm well. Thank you for having me on. Thank you so much.
And we would like for you to introduce your lovely mom.
Thank you, Rob. My mother is my hero, my mentor, and my friend. This lady has gone through all kinds of slings and arrows, and she's still standing. I am so proud of her. She raised 5 of us single-handedly, And I think she did a pretty darn good job. And I'm proud to call her my mother and fellow patriot. Thank you.
Barbara, how are you?
I'm wonderful. I can't complain, particularly after that introduction.
Well, thank you for joining us. I want to thank all of the moms for joining us tonight. And as I said in the opening, I want to just talk to the moms and get words of wisdom from them, because we know that you guys have seen it all. You guys are at the forefront. You guys help keep the families together. We couldn't do it without our moms. And as I said, in today's society, sometimes moms are aunts, they're grandmas, they're great grandmas that step in when that traditional role can't take place. But just as a mom, off the top of your head, what is I would say, the glue that makes it stick in the family?
Well, shall I go first or defer to the other mommy?
You go first.
All right. It's a big question, Rob. I think there's so many things that are so possible for women now, but I really don't think there's anything that means as much in the long run as bearing and rearing a family. I don't know a woman who would disagree with that. I know fashions come and go, and feminism has been, it's something that waxes and wanes. But the essential truth is that women are biologically engineered to be mothers. I think societies are built on families. I think, in some sense, biology is destiny. There's nothing you can do and leave in this world more important than the children you raise. They are what you do in this life. Shakespeare said that that's all we have. We leave behind our children and our children's children, and it's a awesome responsibility, and it's also a great joy. So I love being a mother. There's nothing I've ever done or will do that means anything even close to that to me. So I'm delighted to answer the question. I hope that says what I mean from my heart.
Thank you. Barbara from Harlem.
Well, I think that's one of the greatest things we could ever do in life, is to have children that we invest in their lives and to watch them grow. And what makes it so wonderful is that there's just that love, that special love that a mother has in her heart for those that, even if she didn't give birth to them, but if she's involved in their life, it's so important and it means so much. And it's such a joy. I can truly say that, yes, life has been hard and difficult, when my marriage collapsed and I had 5 children. But I had fun and I enjoyed raising my children, playing with my children, and watching them grow and see them mature into independent men and women, and men and women that contribute to society. I mean, I'm just so blessed. I feel that every child that I've ever had and those children that I've played a role in their lives have been special blessings from God. And it's made my life so rich.
Let me ask you,
Yes.
mothers, this. What happens when you have that one child who's wayward? How do you coalesce that child and keep that child in the fold? Not that you all have had that, but what is your advice to the mothers who have that one child that just doesn't always seem to get it right? What do you do? Do you give up? Do you pray? I know that I've heard so many mothers say that prayer
Yes.
is the key. My
Yes.
mom raised 6 kids, And that was one of her biggest things: prayer, prayer, prayer. So, what is your take on that? Barbara, you can go first if you like.
Well, without prayer, you're lost. And, sometimes children will go astray. We all go astray. But just like, when I was young, my mother and my grandmother introduced me to God. I think that that's the most important aspect of raising children. And they may stray a little bit, but they will come back because you've planted that seed in them.
Mhm.
Prayer goes a long way. Prayer, unconditional in love and understanding, but also firmness, because, sometimes children feel that you don't love them if you don't give them parameters. And we, as the parent, know that some things are very harmful for them. We can't give up on them. We have to keep praying, keep talking, keep encouraging them, and telling them how much we do love them and want them to have the best in life. That's the only way I see that it works. But prayer is one of the most important elements in introducing our children to God, should never be omitted, because then, one thing my grandmother told me, and it always kept me in line. She said, even if I can't see you doing something, God can.
Mhm.
So that helped me not go into drugs, not go into some places that I could have easily entered into, because I said, she may not see me, my mother may not see me, but God will always see me. So that is key to raising children. And if they go astray, you can believe your prayers, your patience, and your love will bring them back.
Wow, that's powerful. And Judith?
Yes.
Well, I can't really dispute anything that Barbara just said. She's absolutely right. Good foundation, whether it be whatever faith you have, is helps, of course. I think the single most important thing that you can give a child from the start is a sense of self-worth. I think people who feel that value, if you value your child and teach that child to value herself or himself, that goes a long way. I really believe that doing well in the world, I think, is easier if you know that your mother and your father thought you could do it. It helps you do it, whatever it is.
Yes. Yes.
I think is instilling confidence and self-esteem, especially in your daughter. It's a little easier, I think, for boys in this world to realize themselves. I think there's a little more of a challenge when you raise a daughter. But I do believe if you and if you're fortunate enough to have a wonderful husband, I really think that of all the wonderful blessings you can bestow on a child is to let that child grow in love with a sense of self-worth. That would be my answer.
Beautiful.
Good, good,
Yes.
good. So
Yes.
now let's ask the daughters about their moms. What are some of the fondest memories you recall growing up, or what words of wisdom did your moms give you? You're both accomplished women. You've been on our show before. You have a voice, you're outspoken. And that's one of the things that, when I was growing up, I know that a lot of girls were oftentimes shy, didn't want to say anything. But I don't see that with Heather or with Phoebe, because you guys have your voice. Did you find it at an early age? Is this something that you saw your mom had, and then you were able to take on? Share with us some of those fun memories or things that you recall growing up.
Well,
Heather?
do you want to jump in, BB, or shall I?
Go ahead, please, Heather. Thank you. I'll go
Okay.
after.
Well, I think that my wonderful mother is also my great friend and fellow writer, and I think from early on she was a lover of literature, of great fun. We used to read a lot. She read to me and my younger brother, all the time. We would have laughs and screaming laughter about, I remember the Judy Blume books and Cricket in Times Square, and definitely instilled in me the love of literature. And I think, my mom would probably like me to tell this story. It's not one of my favorites, but it's one of hers.
I know what you're going to say.
In the spirit of Mother's Day, since we're talking about careers and writing and expression, I interviewed for my girls' school that I attended as a kid with a psychiatrist or psychologist who interviewed the little kids to see their aptitude. And they showed me a picture of a woman, an old woman, sitting in a rocking chair and a pot on a stove, and the pot was boiling over, and asked me to explain what was happening in the picture. I guess the point was to see, is this kid bright enough to form connections and explain what was happening, like, oh, the pot's boiling over, the grandmother is going to have to take the pot off the stove, it's, burning, whatever. So apparently I launched into something of a tirade and an impersonation of this grandmother and said, God, blank, 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 I burned the blank in dinner. And instead of being mad at me for this, my mom was, proud and amused. And the psychiatrist apparently said that I, was a spirited child and verbal and, could make it as a storyteller and, a student at this girls' school. So anyway, my mom's fond of that one, and she was, always in there, had my back, and accepted that I was an expressive and maybe outspoken little character. So she loves me as I am,
So at an early age, you exhibited it, being outspoken.
Yeah, and my mom, instead of being embarrassed that I swore in the interview, she had my back.
Wow.
Let me interject that she was 4 years old at the time, 4 years old, and I was a young mother, and I was sitting there, and this very distinguished gentleman, psychologist, doctor, you could see that he saw that I was shocked what came out of this little kid's mouth. And he said to me, now, just accept that you have a very verbal little girl. I love this story. Yeah.
Wow.
I did.
Wow.
I did.
Okay,
Well,
BB.
There are a lot of wonderful memories. One of the things I picked up from my mother, a great story, Heather, by the way, very funny. She worked very hard. My mother was very, and is still very creative. She started her own businesses. She would sell hair products, whatever she needed to do, worked at the 7-Eleven, what have you. One thing my mother always instilled in us is a good work ethic. And she also taught us that you can have whatever you wanted as long as you worked hard for it. And I think I picked up from her the determination and the drive to succeed and to thrive. And my mother is a pretty amazing woman. I have a lot of stories to tell, and I don't want to take up too much time, but just going to the beach. Like, she would all put us all in the car. We go to the beach, and she'd come up with fun ways to entertain us, because we didn't have a lot of money, but we had a lot of love and we had a lot of support from her. And just an amazing woman. A lot more stories to tell. Thank you.
I'm glad that you said that, because I know a lot of families have mentioned when they were growing up that there probably wasn't a lot of money, but there was always a lot of love.
Yes.
And I think that's so important because you can give a child everything and still it won't buy happiness.
Right.
I mean, case in point, you look at Bill Gates and Melinda Gates, billions of dollars, and their marriage is crumbling. Now, we don't know what their life was like growing up with all that money. But it just shows you that you can have all this money, but if you don't have that happiness, that's so crucial, that happiness, that family, that, bring it together. And a lot of families, although, marriages don't work, they're still able to keep the kids together. But again, not having money, and Barbara still was able to show you guys there was love. That's so important. Ray, do you have another poem for us?
I do. I have a very short poem I wrote because of, grandmothers. I wrote it about grandmothers. And,
Okay.
well, call it grandparents is really a better way. It's not just grandmothers, but grandparents, because I had heard it said that grandchildren complete the dreams of the grandparent. In other words, sometimes grandparents, they didn't completely achieve all the things they may have wanted in their life because maybe they didn't live as long. And a point I'd like to make before I read the poem is about my own mother. Was a swimming champion in London in her early years. And, she wanted to compete at higher levels, but never had the opportunity nor the money to enter. But it turns out two of her grandchildren got swimming and diving scholarships, one to the University of Denver and the other to the University of Utah. So, maybe it's true that grandchildren complete the dreams of the grandparent. So I wrote this poem. It's very short. It's called A Grandparent Lasts Forever. Grandparents are like ribbons around the gifts called our children, so bound together, though conceivably never knowing them ever. We are parents who wish they lived longer than this, to witness these gifts become all that they'd wished, connected together because love lasts forever. You'll see in their faces recognizable traces of those that have left us, but always a part of the children we love.
Wow.
That's it. Short and sweet.
Very
Great poem.
good.
I've often heard the same thing, that, the grandchildren, sometimes they live the lives of the grandparents that the grandparents didn't have, because the grandparents made the way, they paved the way. And then you have the mother and the dad, and then you have this kid who's able to sometimes fulfill those dreams that they were unable to have. Question for the mothers. What happens, or what advice do you give a child who feels as if though they're not doing anything right?
You find what the person is doing right and you compliment them and you encourage them, because all human beings have good within them. Now, they may be doing a lot of things that are not so right, but find those things that you can say, good job. Oh, this is wonderful. How did you do this? Because we all need encouragement. We all need that kind word. We all need to be inspired to fulfill our potential. And if we don't get that, a lot of times we give up on ourselves. And it's so important. I don't care if we have 10 children, every child needs that extra word to find out where that child excels and what he or she excels in, and make sure we compliment them and, keep them going. It just like it, when my children started school, one of my sons didn't like to read too much. So what I did, I found out what he liked to read about, and he liked comic books. So we started getting comic books, and he started reading. He was, passing his other schoolmates, classmates, because he was reading so much, but it was comic books. So I didn't, say, well, you're dumb, you're stupid, you're anything like that. I found out what he liked to read about, and that helped him begin to read and love to read. And as a matter of fact, as a grown man, he still likes his comic books.
I like that story.
Nothing wrong with that.
That's it.
Right? Nothing wrong with comic books.
Yes.
And Judith, what do you say? How do you encourage those children?
children that are doing badly or think they're doing badly?
Yes.
Well, I think, that's a kind of broad question, Rob. Each child is different. Uh, I I think if a child is sort of willful and needs to assert herself or himself, I think sometimes you have to let that child do that. I think that you can't keep your children from learning from their own experience. You can advise and you can say, I don't know about this or that, but sometimes we have to let kids make their mistakes and learn from them. Uh, my my daughter is a very strong and willful, and she always was, little girl. And she and I didn't always agree with about things, but I think I let her exert her own independence and self when I thought she was not always right, but needed to see and do what she needed to see and do.
Right.
I mean, none of us is perfect, and you don't grow up without having some things go your way and some things not go your way. And while I think I've always been the kind of mother that wants to not instruct and control, I think kids need to make their own mistakes. And sometimes I think with my daughter, I think she sometimes knew herself better than her father or I knew her. And she needed to do things her way. I mean, I'm not talking about things that were dangerous to her or anything like that. But when you get into kind of a battle of wills with a willful child, you're going to lose. So I really,
Well,
I really think, especially if you have respect for that child's way of thinking, you got to let her have her head a little bit. That's the way I thought about it anyway.
okay.
You spared the rod and you see the results. I don't know. But it's true that I didn't have as much to rebel against as many people. I think that my mom has always been, she's a creative artist as well as a nurturing, very dear, sweet, loving mother. And I think she's got respect for individuality.
I
And
do.
if I may say so, I don't think anything I was doing was really that out there. I think what we're talking about is things like wanting to wear dresses instead of pants and pants instead of dresses. And however, I will say this, that my mother definitely gave me parameters for sure. She was not so easy about, for instance, I always had to do something every summer, whether it was a job or a volunteer job, that kind of thing. I had to have my hair done when I was little. What I really wanted to do was run around with my hair flying and, no ponytails, no fancy dresses. So, of course, it's true. She gave me a very broad canvas on which to paint, but there were some battles of wills that I did not win, as I recall.
And baby, what do you say?
I think as children, we want to do what we want to do. But as we get older, we appreciate the discipline and the guidance. I remember I wanted this key. I was in Family Dollar or Dollar General, whatever it was called. And I tried to steal it. I was like 5 years old because I wanted it so badly. My mother punished me right there in the store. And it taught me, it was a lifelong lesson that you don't steal. It may seem simple, but it's important. So although you want your child to have creativity and have his or her own mind, there must be some guidelines of discipline, authority, respect the 10 Commandments, that sort of thing. Because in the end, as you become an adult, you're like, wow, I'm really grateful. It spares a lot of problems and trouble. And my mother was a great disciplinarian, but we also had fun.
Right.
We had fun. We would go to the beach. He'd come to the baseball game, whatever we were involved in. she made sure, even though she was working 2 jobs, she made sure she was there.
Right.
So that was a great balance. Thank
Well,
you.
that's interesting talking about that balance, because I look back in my time when I was growing up, and there are a lot of things that my mom was a very strict disciplinarian also.
Yes.
And I would
Yes.
always say, I'm not going to do this and I'm not going to do that and this and that. She's too harsh. She's this and blah, 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 blah. And now when I look out and I see the troubles that some of my friends got into, and not just friends, but other people, and I call my mom and I say, thank you. You did the
Right.
best you could with what you had, and you knocked it out of the ballpark, because I
Right.
could have easily gone a different direction. I could have easily, and it's not to say that I was inherently a bad kid, and you don't have to be a bad kid, but there are
No.
so many things that are out there that are enticing
Yes.
to kids
Yes.
that,
Yes.
sometimes, kids make the wrong decision, as Judith said, and they have to learn from those mistakes. But thankfully, we have our moms who are there to help see us and guide us through and say, hey,
Yes.
this isn't the end of the world. But
Yeah.
I can say that, there were many times, some of the things that I felt that, just growing up, like, this is just too difficult. This is too hard. And, I
Right.
can't. And, because I saw something else that I wanted to do. I saw my friends staying out late, so I wanted to stay out late. My mom's rule
No.
was, when I'm home, if you sneak out of the house and if I catch you, if you're on the other side of that door when it locks, good luck. So we knew we had to be at home. When I hear friends saying, oh, well, I'm going to be out until 1 in the morning. No, that was not in
Never.
the Harper's households. Like, nope,
No.
nope, And as far as sleepovers, rarely. Oh my gosh, my mom was a stickler about that. My dad was like, oh, okay, but my mom, nope, you're staying at home, because she saw so many things happening. And again, that's not to say things were going to happen to us, but she was just so careful. She just didn't want to risk it. I know today a lot of parents let their kids go sleep, spend the night with their friends, and there's nothing wrong with it. But in our household, my mom, she just wasn't a fan of that. So she was very strict, and she made certain, like you had said, Heather, during the summer, you had to do something. We couldn't just stay at home and watch TV and do nothing. You read a book, you get a job. There's always something to do around the house. And at the time, I hated it, did not want to do it. But I look back on that and I say, that made me the person that I am today. Hard
Mhm.
work, discipline.
Mhm.
Right.
And I so appreciate that. And I know that there are others that are out there that appreciate the same thing. And really, a lot of times, children don't realize till it's too late, until their parents, their mom is gone. And then they look back and they say, I understand what she was saying now. Now I get it. So I would encourage everyone that's out there, go and give your mom the flowers now. Don't wait until it's too late. Sit back and understand, why was mom so hard? Why did she allow me to do X, Y, Z? Because there was a reason behind it. There was a meaning behind it. And you look at your life and you look at where you are now, and you can appreciate the
That's
words of
true.
wisdom that they gave you.
You
Yes,
know,
Barbara.
I would just like to say that I thank God that every one of my 5 children, when they reached the age of maturity, they thanked me because I was a disciplinarian. And I let my children know when the sun went down, you better be in that house. I said it just like that. I love them, but they knew I didn't play that.
Right.
I was raised partially by my grandmother. When we were in Florida, we had very strict rules, and not one of those rules ever hindered us or hurt us. And when I was in New York as a child, when my mother and my father separated, we hung out on the stoop. We were up late because my mother worked at night. But when I went to Florida, we were with my grandparents, and I learned this discipline. I applied it to my children because I saw how beneficial it was in my life.
Right.
It prevented me from going many places that were open that I could have gone through, and it would have been detrimental. But like I said, every one of my 5 children said to me, Mama, thank you so much for keeping us out of the street, making sure we were in school, we did our homework, etc., etc., because they've seen many of their friends die prematurely, standing on the corner, etc., etc. And I really appreciated that they didn't understand it when they were young, but when they got older, they did say thank you.
Right. Because then you're able to look back on it and able to
Yes,
reflect and see, hey, this made a difference in my life. This kept me
that's correct.
out of trouble. It helped me to respect authority. It helped me to be
Absolutely.
able to get a job and to stay on the job and not make any excuses. Those are just
Absolutely,
valuable
because
lessons.
when we were in Florida, like people, they keep talking about the police and all that. I told all three of my sons, if you're ever stopped by a police officer, be nice, be polite, and say, please call my mother. I let my sons know, and all of my children knew, I was their mouthpiece. You don't disrespect anybody. You call me, have them contact me. With my sons doing that, and one time they were stopped, my two older sons. They were stopped. I went to the police station. I said what I said. My two sons and I left. No problem at all. And I think if our young people are taught to respect authority, we wouldn't have some of the incidents that we have that are
Right.
truly unnecessary if
Right.
we learn how to respect authority. But many of us and many of our children are growing up without that authoritative figure, and
You
they're
know,
particularly men, fathers in the home. And they go out there naked into the world, and things happen that can be prevented.
I think I'd like to comment now.
Uh-huh.
In all fairness, I really have to say we can talk about the generalities of loving and raising children, but
Yes.
to be honest with you, I didn't have the challenges raising my children that you did, Barbara.
Right.
And
Okay.
I really I take my hat off to you. I never had to fear for my children out in the
I
world
did.
like you did.
Yes.
So your experience, we're here we are, we're the same age and we raise children, but my life and my experiences were quite different than yours. So I give you my hats off to you because you had quite a different set of challenges, no question about it. Uh, my problems and the things I had to deal with my children were quite different. You know, I never had to fear for their lives, thank God, or anything like that. So,
Yes.
we have some things in common and we have some real differences, clearly.
Well, I look back on that and see for years I worked in Harlem with young mothers because my sons and I ran a year-round after school, well, a school age program. But
Mhm.
my experiences helped me relate to women who are facing challenges. See, I can understand it. So, you can understand it from your side and you can
Right.
help younger women, and I understand it from my point of view, and I'm able to help them. So both of
Yeah.
us
Isn't
are
it
able
something
to
though?
relate to
Yeah,
different life situations and help people.
obviously, yes.
Yes.
And that's the beauty of it. We have two women, two mothers on our panel tonight, two
Yes.
beautiful daughters that they raised, and they're
Yes.
able to share, you know, what they went through. Some are similarly because as a mother, but then there are other things, as you said, Judith, that Barbara went through that you never had
Yes.
to go through.
Yes.
But being able to share and hear those stories, and at the end of the day, still knowing that, hey, we're mothers and we
Yes.
care for our children and we did the best we
Absolutely.
could. And I think
Yeah,
that that is the beauty of it because everyone's background is different. But
That's
at the end of the
correct.
day, realizing that we had children and we want the best for our children.
For them. Yes.
And we expect, for our children to be able to rear them and to go out into society and be productive in society.
Amen.
Yes.
Unfortunately, as I said, there are so many competing forces that are out there that are, that get our kids' attention. But with that strong foundation, as you said, Barbara, telling your children, these are the things you need to do to be successful.
Yes.
You call me. That is so important.
Absolutely.
My version of that, and you can see the different influences that we've dealt with. When my children would have a bad dream and they would have a nightmare, I would say, dream me in and I'll always save you. Put me in
I like that.
and if things are bad, just dream me and I'll come and I'll save you.
Wow,
Yeah.
I like that. Dream me in and I'll save you.
That's a mother. That's a mother.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Having the panacea that will help the kid be able to sleep
Yeah.
at night, that you dream me in and I will
Yeah.
come and I save you. I like that. I've never heard of
I
that
love
before.
I just want to add, I think, with
Yes,
the
Mimi.
challenge with Barbara and growing up, the Black family, and we'll get into this in another topic, but the Black family was really disintegrating around this time.
Yes.
With the incentive of Black women, period, getting more benefits if a man wasn't in a home.
Right.
And we grew up with so much brokenness. And without that structure and discipline, we saw teenagers just wilding out, acting up. So it was critical. We didn't grow up in a safe, it wasn't the worst neighborhood, but with the brokenness of the homes, people were more likely to get into things they normally wouldn't get into. So our childhood experiences were different. We did not have that protection from an intact community, that maybe you had. So I think that was critical, and Barbara's guidance and toughness was really critical in us not just falling apart as a family.
And I
Thank
think
you.
also, if I could add
Yes.
also, based upon what you're saying, being in that neighborhood and not having, like you said, that safety net, but yet still you have the guidance. You had a strong mother who refused to give her kids up to the streets. And look at where you are today.
Excellent
You have so
point.
many mothers who don't do it. In Judith's case, she didn't have those same challenges. Okay, but the challenges that she had, those were her challenges. But then you look at today's society, whereby there are children who aren't in the best neighborhoods, and they become wayward children. Whereas there are others. Yours, Barbara, is a success story that people can hear. That, hey, my kids didn't grow up in the ideal neighborhood either, but look at what I did.
But my children we never lived in like the projects. I always purchased a home. So and
Right.
the areas that I purchased them in, like the first home I got was in Queens Village, and that was predominantly Italian, and that was a nice neighborhood. Then when we moved to Florida, we lived in fairly good neighborhoods because we were purchasing the houses. I was purchasing the house.
Right.
As a matter of fact, our last home, my children even had an in-ground swimming pool. We were in Daytona Beach, Florida. So I tried to pick very decent neighborhoods to purchase homes in, because I use one home to get another home, et cetera, et cetera. That's what I'm able to even tell these single mothers now. You don't have to be stuck in an apartment. My children never lived in an apartment.
Right.
Never. We always lived in a private home.
Because of your tenacity. And like I said, and that speaks volume as to the mother that you are, making certain that your kids were protected and that they were in something stable. Ray, you have
That's
another
right.
poem for us?
I do. I have a poem. I mean, first of all, I'm really enjoying this entire discussion. To get the perspective is amazing. I will tell you that, one of the things that my own mother is trying to teach her grandchildren is to think for themselves and to not get so rolled over by this groupthink.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
to have your own point of view. But she also wanted to also let them know that, people don't realize that our mothers, our grandparents, they were children at one time.
That's true.
My mother wrote a memoir because she wanted her grandchildren and great-grandchildren to understand that she was once a little girl. So I wrote a poem called Reflections of a Child.
Wow.
When we look at our children, what do we see? All the potential of what they could be. When they look back at us, what do they see? That curious question of what it could be. They really don't know us and what we have done. To get where we are, it hasn't always been fun. But one day they'll notice that we're just like they are, yearning for love, reaching for stars. They may see a picture of when we were young, framing the questions how far we have come. It all fits together, digitally filed. Inside of each parent, within lies a child. Wow. We look at our parents, whether living or gone. They saw our potential of what we've become. That miracle moment, a lifetime compiled, when a child sees the parent as they were as a child.
That's powerful.
Wow.
I think something that you just said that just really stood out is that a lot of times when we're growing up as children, we don't see that or realize that our parents too were children at one point in time. We can't see it. We can't identify with it. But as we get older, we look back on it, we're like, oh yeah, they were, because I was a child at one point in time as well. And, they were there. So they know a lot of the challenges that I'm going through to a certain degree.
True.
As I said earlier on, there are so many things out there, so many competing things that are out there that, easily our children could very easily, go to them, and it might not be the right decision. But I think this is a very important conversation that we're having now, hearing from different mothers and their daughters as to how they saw life and what it was like rearing their children, because everyone has a different take on how they raised their family when they were coming up. So it's just so important to have those different backgrounds, to be here to share those stories with their viewers.
Right.
You're absolutely right. And I think, and I'll be brief, I think one of the most important things you learn as you grow older is that your mother is human. We look to our mothers to save us. They're our queens. They're our light, our guiding light. And then you learn as you grow older that they had fears and frailties, and you learn to, your mother did the best she could with what she had, and particularly my mother, given the circumstances. So you learn that, and you appreciate all that she did, because she could have walked away. She could have given us up to the state, but she did not, and I thank God for that.
Yeah.
I'd like to say that's such a beautiful sentiment, Bibi, and I see where you come by your feeling for your mother, and I appreciate the way my daughter is with me as well. We're kind of success stories. There are such things as ungrateful children. There are such things as people that don't succeed in parenting. So I have to give a little shout out to these daughters too. This is very lovely. It really is. It's very, very lovely. I know Barbara's going to agree with me. This is such a beautiful experience for me, and I think Barbara too, as mothers, to have this sweet tribute of these lovely daughters. Honestly, that's a bitter truth. There are ungrateful children in this world.
Oh, yes.
Not every mother gets this much love and respect. So here's to the little daughters.
Yes.
Yes.
Well,
Thank you so much.
Yes.
People like you ones, and it does make you realize that when you're so loved, you realize that love, at the risk of sounding, I don't mean to sound corny, but it is transformative. It's if every mother was as loving as you two, I think it would be a very different world. If people related to other people with the awareness that everyone is someone's child, it would be a very, very different world and a better.
So well said, honey. Well said.
Yes, 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 yes.
Right, and that's what we
Absolutely.
need. And what you said, Judith, I think is also important. Some children are ungrateful
Yes.
to the things that their parents have done for them, the many sacrifices. I've seen that with some of my associates, friends, completely ungrateful because of the failures that they've had in life, because they failed to listen to their mom or their dads or their parents. But when you have that parent who's unconditional, always there with the love, and we see it with come shining through with Heather and BB. I'm sure that some of our listeners or watchers can see it because they've seen them come on our show and articulate so perfectly their thoughts and their opinions. And when they've been on with their mom, deferring to their mom, making certain that their mom's voices, I've noticed that it's those the little simple things that you notice with the connection of the mothers and the daughters. So again, hats off to these mothers for, and their daughters done such a fantastic job. Now we've been sitting here talking the entire time. I know that Andrew, have you tried to get in and say anything? Like I say, happy Mother's Day to your mom. Here's your opportunity. Yes, sons do count as well. Someone just said in our chat room.
Absolutely.
No, I've just been listening to you guys and enjoying the show. So thank you all for coming on. We really appreciate it. And it's been great to hear from all the mothers and daughters and sons tonight.
No, Ray, your mom, you said 95 years old. No,
Yes.
share with us something, fantastic about your mom. We don't want to leave, because we have two daughters and now we have a son.
Yes.
She's done so much, and I've had struggles growing up, and there were good times and bad, a rough divorce, and I have two children, and I have difficulty with my daughter from that divorce, and then politics has really thrown monkey wrenches at relationships. So
Yes.
one of the things I just want to mention about my mom is, again, we shouldn't be so torn apart just because we have a different political belief. And we've seen this hit us so hard, all of us, since we've all known each other. We've been through political struggles, but Mother is so wise, is probably the best thing I can say, that don't let it kill you. Like, even with, I think I've said this before, when it became to the pandemic and all the struggles we've had this last year with the pandemic, she said to me, Ray, we die once. Why die every day?
Right.
So she's a pragmatist, and she loves us unconditionally through good times and bad. And that's the beauty of a mother. They just know what to do. And my hat is off to my mom. Every day I learn something new. I swear. I swear to God, I learned something new every day if I'm just open to it.
Right, that's powerful. I like that. And one of the things you mentioned, that this whole political circus that we're in now, politics will go away, but your family is always there. And you might have a difference of opinions. What I would say is to stop, listen, and respect the other person. Now, of course, me being on the right, I feel that my opinion and my thoughts matters and it counts. But we have to be able to agree to disagree respectfully, and then walk away, keeping the family intact. Heather, you wanted to bring up another point about the courage of the mothers. Go ahead.
Just that I think without getting too personal, I think that any of us who's ever been at a crossroads and just the courage that it requires to choose to be a mother, I have such reverence for. Maybe I'm a bit of an overthinker in life, but I think that what an awesome responsibility, and really the only irrevocable decision that exists is the decision to be a parent, because pretty much everything else in life can be undone. Well, I mean, other than something really horrible or drastic, but I mean, it's really the only sort of um, you know, uh, in the course of normal life kind of decision that can never be made, that can't be undone. And I just, I'm very much in awe of that courage, to have faith, to take the leap, to bring new life into the world and sustain it. The untold sacrifices, the uncertainties, the trials and unpredictable twists and turns
That's
that
true.
it can take. It's great, and I think especially women like these, like my mother and Bibi's wonderful mother, and mothers who really put their whole heart and intellect and character into the job of raising children, or are really they're the angels on the earth, and they're the ones keeping things going and sustaining what's good in the world. So
Powerful statement, because it does take a lot of courage to be a mother. Anyone can have a kid, birth a kid, but it takes that special person to be willing to go that extra mile. And as Bibi said, so many times I looked at my mom and I would say, gosh, I think I would have just like given us all up, walked away like, geez, I don't know, But she stayed right there. And there are so many mothers. As I said earlier, I don't care how much money you have. You've seen people with a lot of money and they say, I can't do this. But then there are that special person, that special breed, that says, I can do this, and I'm going to do this through thick and through thin, hell or high water. I am here for the long haul. And sometimes we make mistakes, and that mother is still there, the supporter, the biggest cheerleader, like Barbara said, going to the different games, always there.
Yes.
And I just want to say,
as Judith said, although, having an outspoken child, she's still there like, hey, this is my kid. This is her, this is who she is, Go ahead, Bibi.
No, I apologize. I just say one of the crowning achievements that my mother accomplished is that all of us, even my deceased brother, all of us got a degree. We got college degrees. We all graduated high school. We had friends dropping out, not going, not doing it. She managed to get us all through. She instilled that in us, and we all have degrees. And I attribute that to her. We even had a singing group. She played the piano, the Five Singing Angels. A lot.
Barbara, you never told us that. You should be singing for us.
No, we were the singers. She just played.
Okay, and she played the piano, the pianist. Okay.
Yes. She took us to different churches. She played the piano, and we sang. Yes.
Wow.
So. Yes. And she was a driving force behind my sister winning Daytona Beach teen in the 1980s. So a lot is there. And I'm just so grateful. Thank you, guys. Thank you. And thank you, Heather's mother, Judith. Thank you. Wonderful words. Thank you for your support.
Amen.
Well, it's been a pleasure. It's been a wonderful evening. And I thank you all. Thank you, Rob and Andrew and the wonderful panel. I'm delighted to have joined you. Thank you for inviting me. Really capped off a wonderful Mother's Day for me.
Yes. This was a great session.
Thanks, Judy.
Thank you.
Sorry. Anyone else have any closing thoughts?
And I want to say thank you for this time to spend to share some of the wonderful joys of motherhood and some of the lows of motherhood. And I hope that we've said some words to encourage those young mothers who may be struggling right now, not to give up, not to give in, but to keep on fighting. Because one day those children will say, "Thank you, mother, for being there for me." It's a blessing. My daughter BB and all of my children. I do have my baby son who's deceased, but all of my children, I believe that I know that they were gifts from God, and it's just such a wonderful privilege to be a mother. So stay in there, fight strong, stand up, and stay on your knees praying for each and every one of your children.
Yes.
And thank you, Rob, and thank you, all of you, for having me again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone
Yes.
else?
I
Okay,
just
Andrew, you can
also
close
say
us out.
thanks to the panel and everybody here tonight. I'm glad that I was
Yes.
invited to this really important show.
I agree. And thank you for all the wonderful sons out there. Sons are also critically important. Thank you.
Yes, they are.
Yes, I one little parting shot. I always say this: mothers, I think, are the home and the hearth. I think that fathers are very important. They're the bridge to the
Absolutely.
world. Mother is love and nurturing, but you need a strong and good father to help you bridge out from mother to the world. And
Yes.
Heather had that. She had a wonderful father. So maybe sometime we might consider having a Father's Day show. I would love to watch something like that, Rob. Something
Absolutely.
Amen.
to say.
Absolutely.
Amen.
Mhm.
Okay, if that's it, Andrew, you can close us out.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight, and thank you to our fantastic panel that we had on tonight. And please join us tomorrow night at 9 Eastern, 8 Central, 6 in the West on iHeartRadio.
Good night.
Good night,
Good
everybody.
night.
Night,
Good
all.
night.
Happy
God
Mother's
bless.
Day.
Happy
Thank
Mother's
you.
Day.
Happy Mother's Day.
Yeah, happy
Thank
Mother's
you.
Day,
Happy
everyone.
Mother's Day.
Bye-bye now.